Hi, I'm Peter Handfield, Product Manager of Mailers Plus 4 for Melissa Global Intelligence. Today we're going to be going over Mailers Plus 4. Before we get started on going over the product, let me introduce you to a few of the features that we have with it. We have our address check feature. By using address check, you're able to increase address quality in your database with our CAS certified engine. With address check, you could also check Canadian addresses. It is also CERP certified, which is the Canadian Postal Authority's version of CAS. We also have our duplicate check, which helps reduce waste by eliminating costly duplicates. We have our presort, which will allow you to get the lowest postal rates available with our Pave Gold certified software. And we also offer a Geocoder add-on, which helps provide users with the location information needed to make better decisions about marketing segmentation, sales clustering, logistics, risk exposure, and tax jurisdictions. Let's get started on looking at the product. First thing we're going to do is go ahead and open up Mailers Plus 4. And of course the Windows warning. And let's open up a file. For this demo, we'll go ahead and use this file right here. It's about 20,000 records. And once we have the file open, we're going to format the fields, which is basically telling the program which fields in the database are which. If your database has headers in it that are commonly associated with the names, like company, it'll recognize that as company, first name, last name, and so on. But like for some of them, it might not recognize it. So what you would have to do is you would just have to go down here and say, for contact, we want to, that's going to be our full name. So we'll go ahead and select full name. And then we have our city, state, zip code, +4, carrier route, delivery point, and we added the intelligent mail barcode, the alpha code, and the numeric code. And we also put in our endorsement field, result codes, latitude and longitude, census tract, and census block numbers. Once everything is formatted and we're ready to proceed, we just hit OK. And then the first thing we want to do is run it through address check. That way all the addresses are standardized to the United States Postal Service's expectations. And then we hit address check, or we could also go right click and go to address check, or we can go to list and then address check and then options. We have a few options when processing it through address check. We could skip previously coded, which we only recommend if you're going to be just running address check and you don't plan on running through duplicate check, or you have a very large list and you don't want to start all over again. Then we have use US preferred city name. What this does is for cities that have more than one name, like we have Rancho Santa Margarita in California, which can be abbreviated to RSM. What this does is if you don't have the preferred city name in there, which is Rancho Santa Margarita, and it'll automatically correct it to the one the post office prefers. We have a combined range and address field. This isn't used too often. This is only if you have your street number and your street name in different fields. Then we have different options for address standardization, which is never, which we just pretty much leave it exactly how it is in there. We don't recommend using this option very often, though, because the whole point of this is you want to get your addresses standardized and all looking very similar into the specifications of the United States Postal Service. Only uncoded records. This one, we only change addresses that we're able to recognize as valid addresses. This is probably the preferred option that we recommend to customers. We also have always. What this does is no matter if we're able to validate the address or not, we'll try to standardize it. Usually we don't want to do this one either, is because if we're not able to recognize it, you really don't want it changing any of the data. And we have our casing options, auto, which looks at the field how it is and your list and sees and tries to duplicate how it actually is in your list, if it's all upper lower or if it has upper casing. And then we also have upper lower, which does first letter is uppercase, second letter is lower. We have all uppercase, which does exactly what it says. It's going to just make everything uppercase. This one we have convert the company field to all caps. That's if it's upper lower or all lowercase or something like that, and you want it to make it so it's all standardized to uppercase. And this one is do not case the name field. If you already have the name field formatted how exactly you wanted, sometimes I'd recommend you to check off this option. And here's a few things that we can do on address errors. Clear existing +4s. Usually you want to do this and the clear existing carrier routes, because if we're not able to validate the address, you really don't want the bad +4s and bad carrier routes in the data. And then we also have delete unresolved Dbase records. What this does is it marks them for deletion. You don't actually delete them until you pack the database, which I'll show you how to do after this. So we'll go ahead and mark the errors for deletion. This option will allow you to just print the CAS form first without any viewing it or anything like that. It sends it to the printer. Or if you have Adobe selected as the printer, you could actually print it to Adobe. And we'll go ahead and hit go on this. And this is just warning me that since my zip code field is only 5, that if I have any Canadian addresses in there, that it won't be able to fit those and validate those. Since I know this list is all US, I'll go ahead and hit yes on this. And this is just a warning saying that I have less than 15 days for the software to update. You want to make sure that we do send out monthly updates via email, and we also have the option to receive bi-monthly updates via disk. And you want to make sure that you're constantly updating the data as soon as you get it. And as it codes it kind of does a pie graph here of telling you what kind of addresses are in your database in case you didn't already know. Like, it looks like most of this one is all street addresses with some high rises and some PO boxes. And it goes pretty quick. As you can see, there's quite a few errors in this list. Looks like about almost 9%, maybe 10%. And once you're done with it, once it's done, you have a few options here. You could view the error report, which gives you what the error was, the zip code, the record number, and the address in the city, state, and zip. You can print that report. You can try to resolve the addresses. Usually when you resolve the addresses, you're going to have a hard time doing suite S1s. And so we usually will choose that option right here to ignore range and suite errors. Because with the DPV files, it's really hard to validate those addresses. Let's try validating this one right here, which is 287 Norton Drive, which is an unknown street. So we'll go ahead and click on that one and then click on Resolve down here on the bottom. And first thing we want to do is search in range. That actually looks like the correct address right here, Norman's Street, rather than Norton's Drive. So we would go ahead and then just click on that, double click on it, and then it corrected it and removed it from the list. Certain ones are a lot harder to validate than other ones, like M is multiple match, meaning that there's 2 listings in the database, and we'll search in range. So it's not able to tell which one it is. let's see, there's an east and a west, so it's not able to tell exactly which one it should choose. So we'll go ahead and cancel on that one. We won't validate that one. But this one is a T, which is a component error. We'll go ahead and search in range. It looks like we're just missing the, it looks like the pre-direction is not correct, that there is no north, there's only a south, so we'll go ahead and correct that. And once we're done with resolving the addresses, we can just click on close. And once we're done, you see how there's the little check boxes, marks like on this record number 10, 43, and 50. What those are from is when we marked them for deletion. To actually remove those from your database, you'd go to Database and then Pack. And then we would click on Pack, and that would actually remove those records. I don't really want to remove these records from this database, so I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel on this. And then to remove the little marks, say, like for example, I decided I don't want to keep the I don't want to remove the records. What I could do is just choose to recall them, and then click on recall. And what that does is it removes all the X, so they're no longer marked for deletion. The next feature we'll talk about is duplicate check. We could find duplicates by address, name and address, last name and address, or if we have a certain key field like an invoice number or a customer number, you're able to do it by that. You could also do it by phone number, name and phone number. And what these options right here are is for the suite number, if we want to just ignore suite number, or if we wanted to match it to blank, which means if one is a suite number 10 and the other does not have a suite, we would consider that a match. Or we can match it to exact, which means that they both have to be suite 10. What this is which record that we want to keep. We would probably want to keep the record in the lowest in this case, but it's up to you. What it does is if you're removing them or marking them for deletion, it will mark the opposite one. So if I want to keep the lowest record and I choose mark for deletion, it'll mark the highest record number for deletion. You could also choose the option to do the most complete. So if there's more data in the record, it will choose that one. Usually we recommend that you use this option. And we could always save these settings as our default. So next time we come in, they'll be here. Let's go ahead and mark them for deletion again. We'll go ahead and hit go. And it looks like there's 86 records. We'll go ahead and view the results. And since we chose address only, you can see these two, even though they have a different company name, are considered a match. Say that you decide that I want to keep this one instead of that one. You just click in here. Where is it? You can go back and choose a different option when you run it through. You could choose that you want to do the highest record. And you can see that there's a lot of duplicates in this list right here. So we'll go ahead and get out of here on this one. So go ahead and hit OK. And you could print the results, or you could preview them if you want to see them also. And this is the total number of duplicates right here. There was 86. But there was actually a total of 69 duplicate groups, meaning that there's instances where the same address has more than one duplicate. So say, for example, 123 Main Street is in there 4 times. That would be considered a one duplicate group. Well, it would be considered 4 duplicates itself. We'll go ahead and hit OK on this and close this. And since I went ahead and marked these for deletion, I want to go ahead and recall the records again because I don't want to actually accidentally delete them later. So we'll go to Database and then Recall. and recall them all. And the next thing that I'll show you is our presort. Our presort is PAVE Gold certified. We're able to do standard, first class, and periodicals. Oops, I went a little too quick for it. We'll go ahead and choose. We chose new mailing, and here's where we enter in our post office mailing. Since we're in Rancho Santa Margarita, I'll go ahead and just enter in RSM, which is an approved abbreviation from the post office of Rancho Santa Margarita. And I can just save that as my default. That way I don't have to worry about changing that again. And we'll go ahead and just do a standard mailing. And with standard, you only have the option of letter card or flat. We'll go ahead and do letter card. And we'll go ahead and choose profit, but we do have the option to do nonprofit. And then right here is where you'd want to select if your post office is an SCF or an NDC. The reason why you want to do this is because if there's less than the 200 pieces, your piece, if you have any pieces that are going to the SCF and that is your mailing, they'll still get the SCF rate, which is cheaper. And here's where we enter in our dimensions of our piece. So we find it's easier if you take 10 pieces and try to measure the thickness rather than one. That's why we have the option to enter in how many samples. If it's easier for you, if they're really thin pieces, to measure 100 pieces, then you could also enter in there and it'll do the math for you to calculate the single piece. And then same with our how many ounces it is. One piece usually doesn't weigh that much, so it's kind of harder to get an accurate reading on it. And here's where we enter in the piece dimensions. The height, then the mail. And if the mailing processing type is non-machinable, in this case, we'll go ahead and keep it machinable and click on next. Here's where we enter in our permit information. Sometimes you have instances where you have a different mail owner than the permit holder or your mailing agent, and you're using the customer's permit information. Depending on the situation, you'll determine which boxes to fill out. If you're doing the mailing for yourself and you're using, obviously you'd be using your permit if you're doing that, then you would just fill out the permit holder information. There's no need to fill out the other boxes. But if you're a mail owner and you're doing the mailing for someone else but using your permit, they would be considered the mail owner, so you'd fill out this information, and then you'd fill out your information in the permit holder since you're using your permit. Or if you're a mailing agent and you're using the mail owner's permit to do all the stuff, you'd fill out all your information for the mailing agent, and then you would fill in your customer's permit as the permit holder. You want to make sure that this information is correct, because when you submit it for mail.dat, it'll help eliminate any kind of by-for errors that you get. You want to make sure that this information is correct. And once you have all this information filled out, you could just click on next. And here we have a few more options that we could do. We can look at our container tags. Usually you don't need to mess with the adjustments on here if you're trying to get it to line up correctly. You could adjust these settings right here. We could also add a border, container number, container size, and if there's any other information you want to add to it. And we'll go ahead and hit OK on this. And here's our mail.dat options. Just make sure the phone number is in there, the doc sender ID in case it's different from your customer ID. If it's not, different, then just enter your customer ID in there. The contact email in case, and then the verification facility, and where you want the mail.dat files to get exported. This is the sequence number that must be included in the Intelligent Mail barcode. We usually recommend that you stick with auto. What this does is it allows mailers plus 4 to keep track of the numbers for you. But if say, for example, you want to start first, there's a number, you could enter in the starting number here. Or if your list already contains a field that has the serial number in there that you want to use. But we really recommend that you just keep it on auto. That way you don't have to worry about accidentally using the same number twice. And then we have the tracing options, which the post office allows you to do. And we'll go ahead and keep the tracing off on this one. Go ahead and hit OK. And here's where we, if you're doing a drop shipment to the NDC or the SCF, you're able to select them in here. And what it does, it'll automatically highlight the NDC and the SCF, depending on your local post office that you entered in on the other screen. Since the SCF for Rancho Santa Margarita is Santa Ana, it has Santa Ana highlighted, and the NDC is Los Angeles for Rancho Santa Margarita, so it has Los Angeles highlighted. And it's really easy to add them. You can just add them by clicking on Add, or if you just double-click on them. And you just click on Remove, or you can double-click on them to remove them. As you can see, the DDU is grayed out. That's because DDUs are only available for enhanced carry route sorts for flats only. We won't go ahead and do any destinations in this mailing. We'll go ahead and click on OK. And then we'll go ahead and click on Go. And it shouldn't take too long to go through pre-sorting. And of course, if you have any questions while you're doing the mailing or you need any help whatsoever, our tech support is always available Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And right now it's just generating the mail.dat files and the reports it needs to create. One thing people also forget is it takes in order to get the intelligent mail barcode, it does both need address check and the presort to create those numbers. So that's one reason why it's taking a little bit longer. It is writing those numbers and the alphanumeric versions to the database. Okay, it looks like it's all done, and this is the path that we put to our mail.dat files. I'm going to click on OK on this. Oops, and I think I accidentally hit, there it goes. And the list did not qualify for enhanced carrier route, but it did qualify for automation and non-automation, which is fine. And it looks like it had a few residual pieces. So we'll go ahead and click on Next. And this brings us to our report screen where we can view the qualification report. And it has a running total and the train numbers. And basic tells you exactly what you need to, how you need to pack your list in order to get the presort discount. The qualification report is one of the reports that you need to bring to the post office. Same with the postage statement right here. And we'll go ahead and close that. I don't want to save the changes. And we also have our tray and sack labels. And since we chose no options or anything, they're just like this. But usually I would recommend that you do the draw border if you're just printing on a regular piece of paper and plan on cutting it out. Makes it a little easier. And just these are just a few other reports just to help you through the mailing. And if you do end up having a problem with your presort or have some questions on it, it's usually a good idea when you call tech support or if you're going to email them, is to include your presort parameter report in the email, or just have it handy also. That way you have the settings available for them so they could help solve the any kind of problems or questions that you have with the mailing. And you also have the option to export the automation pieces or the non-auto pieces. But for this mailing, we're not going to export any of them. We'll go ahead and click on Finish. And do I want to save these as a template? Sure. That way next time I can go in and I can just choose a template. And we'll just call that test. And that way next time, say I want to do the same exact mailing again, I can just choose text, test, and it takes me to the screen so I can skip a few steps. Next thing we're going to go over is our Geocoder. For Geocoder, I'd recommend that you first run the list through address check. That way you have the current up-to-date +4s associated with the file. And then once you run it through address check, I'd go ahead and then I would run it through the Geocoder. The Geocoder is an extra add-on that is available, which your salesperson should be able to give you a demo of if you'd like. And we could choose if we want the decimal in the latitude and longitude fields, if we want to include the negative symbol in the longitude, or want it just pretty much implied. Or we also give you the option to skip previously coded records, which I usually don't recommend because sometimes we do update the data quarterly, so sometimes the data gets corrected a little bit. So you almost want to pretty much keep this option off. But if you're doing a large list of 1 million or so, then you might want to consider this just to speed it up. But it's really up to the individual user whether they want to use that or not. Same with the delete on codable records, Dbase records. Usually in Geocoder, I usually wouldn't recommend using this option because if it's a newer zip code or something like that, we won't be able to code it, but we might be getting the data later. So we'll go ahead and run this list through right now. And it shouldn't take too long for it to go through. Well, pretty good, only a few errors in this list. And we can just hit OK. And now you can see that if we go to our latitude and longitude fields, that we have those fields populated now. And we also have the track and the block numbers if they are available for the record. In some cases, we were able to do the latitude and longitude, but the census track and block number was not available. We are always trying to increase the quality of our data, so it does get updated quarterly. That's why we do sell it as a subscription rather than as a one-time update. We also have a few other little quick tools that I'll go over really quickly that might help you. So with the quick tools, we have Tally. What this will do is it'll give you a list by zip code, by county, SCF, carrier route, state, or NDC of how many records in your list for each zip code, county, SCF, or carrier route. We'll go ahead and choose a few of these. And then we'll go ahead and hit go. And now we can just preview the report. So this list here has only 56 records in this zip code. And you could actually choose, if you want, to do more than 50. Just for this purposes, I just chose 50. And then we could also view how many are in each county. This would be kind of handy if you're doing a periodical and you want to drop it off at that county as a DDU. That way you can get the in-county rate. The SCF, if you want to know how many pieces for each SCF, if you are considering drop shipping. Same with the NDC, is the same thing. And then we also have, if we want to just do it by state, and it gives you the percentage here. And also have records in a radius, which could help you if you're trying to determine how many records are within a 5-mile radius of, say, if I want to do just my main city and I only want to do about 10 miles of that zip code. I don't want to go any further than that. So I can just type in my center point, which will be 92688, and hit go. And say, let's say I make the radius, then let's go a little further. Let's go 50 miles. And then I just click on results, and it tells me that there's 128 records. Well, that's really not enough to do mailing. So rather than do that, we'll just do the minimum to do a mailing, which is the 200 records. And let's see how far a radius that actually is. I would have to go out 131 miles just to get the minimum number of records to do a radius. And if I wanted to save these results, I would just click on save. And what it does, it actually saves those records as another PDF file. That way, I'd want to run those ones through a presort and just do those ones as the mailing. And we also have our zips in a radius. If you want to see how many zip codes are within a 10-mile radius of your zip code, you want to include unique zip codes or PO boxes. What this is good for is if you're trying to determine if you want to buy a list, what you could do is you could look at, say, I want to go about 10 miles out of your zip code, but you don't really want to go any further than that. You could just give our list department this list of zip codes right here, and they would just run counts for you for these zip codes. And that's pretty much most of Mailers Plus 4. Do we have any questions? Looks like we have a question about address check. The question was, how do I get the Canadian database and stuff? Because I noticed it's not included on the on the disk. Well, the Canadian used to be a separate add-on, but we decided that we wanted to help our customers get into the Canadian market, so we decided to include that in for free. So if you do decide that you wanted to do that, you could just let your sales rep know, and they would include that with you. They'd send you a link to download it. Looks like we have another question with about address check, about one of our another add-on that we recently decided to include in the cost of Mailers Plus 4, which is, it has to do with the RBDI, which what it does is it's able to tell based on the address whether that it's a resident or a business. And sometimes we have a hard time in like really rural areas, so we put the U there for those. But to get that information, all you would have to do is ask your sales rep for the license key for RBDI, and that way when it does the install, it'll include RBDI. And then you would go down here and click on, you would create a field in your database and format it as business/residential. And when you run in your list through address check, it'll append either a B, U, or an R. Is there any more questions? Looks like I have one more question. It was in regards to the exporting street data and what exactly that does. What this is is it allows you to pick a zip code or multiple zip codes and export the street data. Lets you know all the ranges of addresses and the street names in the zip codes. You do not want to make a list using this because it is only using ranges and not the exact addresses. That's why I really didn't cover this feature, because it really doesn't go into effect that much anymore now that DPV is required. It looks like that is all the questions we have right now. Thank you for joining us. Once again, I'm Peter Handfield with Melissa Global Intelligence. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to email us, or you could contact our tech support at tech@melissadata.com. Thank you. Have a great day.